Hello, this is Look Up channel. My name is Yuriy Matsarsky. Today we will talk about one of the most interesting methods of fighting tyrannical regimes and aggressive dictators. Sanctions. Exactly because of sanctions, Bashar al-Assad was forced to invent a virtual double person for himself. In many respects, it was the sanctions that brought Saddam Hussein to the scaffold, and it seems sanctions are slowly but surely leading Vladimir Putin along Saddam's path. Sanctions are a tool of non-military influence on the enemy. They do not bomb the enemy's tank factories, they do not shoot his infantry, they do not destroy the bridges and railway stations with pinpoint strikes. But at the same time, they can leave the enemy without tanks and without infantry and without infrastructure, just in other ways. Most importantly, sanctions are not a magic wand. Sanctions alone can neither destroy a tyrannical criminal regime nor turn it into a peaceful democratic one. The main purpose of sanctions is to deprive such a regime of as many resources as possible, which it needs for aggressive wars, internal repressions and other nasty things. War and repressions are not only about ideology or politics, it is also about the economy. Without money, without technology, without metal, plastic, electronic parts, and without people who know how to use all of this, it is impossible to build either an army capable of fighting outside the country or an effective punitive apparatus that carries out repressions within the country. That is why the main task of the sanctions is to make the one against whom these sanctions are introduced much more poorer, so that he or she would have less and less money, less metal, less sophisticated electronics and other resources. At the same time, it is desirable that the subject of one against whom sanctions are introduced do not really know how to properly dispose those material that they still have. Therefore, countries that fall under sanctions usually lose more than just supplies of materials. They are also cut from the exchange of scientific information, and in general they are deprived of access to modern scientific and technical thought. This is necessary so that the one against whom the sanctions were imposed would not have any opportunity to create new types of weapons or improve old ones. So the most important task of the sanctions is to slow down as much as possible the development and production of weapons in the country on which they are imposed. Ideally, leave this country without new tanks, missiles, guns and aircraft. This ideal is hardly achievable, but it does not mean that it is not aspired to, often regardless to the consequences. Thus, in Iraq in 1990s, which was under sanctions due to invasion of neighboring Kuwait, the international community did not really consider these very consequences. As a result, the country faced completely unexpected problems. Some of them were anecdotal. For example, at some point there was a shortage of pencils in Iraq, and all because the supply of graphite to Baghdad as one of the components of the nuclear industry was banned. A pencil lead is made of graphite. Other problems were much more tragic. The aggressor country was banned from importing chlorine. Saddam Hussein and his entourage were famous for their love for chemical weapons, and chlorine is often used to create them. But the fact is that chlorine can not only kill but also save. In Iraq, chlorine has been used in tap water treatment systems, and the ban on its supply led to the fact that water flowed from the tap not really purified at all. One after another, epidemics of long-forgotten diseases broke out in the country. According to various estimates, the lack of chlorine led to the deaths of between 300,000 to 5 million Iraqis. This is the price the people paid for a dictator's folly. By the way, the sanctions have fulfilled their main task. While killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people and leaving the survivors without pencils, they also left no chance for Saddam to upgrade his arsenal. As a result, by the time the Americans and their allies invaded Iraq in 2001, Hussein had only old soldiers Soviet, Chinese and even North Korean tanks and guns at his disposal, which could not oppose modern Western weapons. How did it all end? A noose for Saddam, a permanent political crisis for Iraq, the emergence of ISIS, the rise of separatism, the aggravation of inter-religious hostility and our troubles. The Russians should remember this. Their country is no less problematic and tyrannical than Saddam Hussein's Iraq, so the problems can be no less serious and painful. It is now in the heat of the patriotic psychosis the Russians do not see what kind of nightmare the ruler now leading them to. And when they see it, it will most likely be too late. Iraq and its present, which is far from the best state even 2 decades after the lifting of sanctions, is just one example of what happens to rogue states. Look at North Korea. What's going on there? Because of sanctions, more than half of country populations dress in cheap synthetics made from stones and alcohol, lives from hand to mouth, and considers the destruction of the United States to be the main life task. It is clear that the sanctions were not introduced from the scratch. North Korean leaders really wanted to look like tough guys and make the whole world reckon with themselves. And what could be cooler than an atomic bomb, lifelong rule and ability to send anyone to Gulag? Nothing in their coordinate system. And the sanctions are deadly for the common people only. Kim is well fed and healthy. If he has enough brains not to invade other countries, then he will live well fed and healthy until his death. If not enough, he runs the risk of repeating the fate of Saddam. Today I did not get to the sanctions imposed against the Syrian regime and the story about the virtual double of Bashar al-Assad. Well, I'll save that for next episode. Moreover, this character is worthy of a separate, detailed story. Just a small spoiler for the next program. I knew Assad personally and I even have a rather curious gift from him. I hope I can show it to you in the next episode. Goodbye. See you.